My name is Ethan, and I am 33 years old. I learned early that belonging is a temporary condition. My mother died when I was 9. My father left long before memory could preserve his face. What I remember most about those years is the quiet. Not the kind that brings peace, but the kind that settles in the corners of rooms after someone stops believing they'll be heard. By 18, I had drifted through 9 foster homes. Every new mattress smelled of strangers and government soap. Every kitchen had different rules about where I could stand, what I could eat, and how loudly I could exist. You stop believing in permanence after that. You start collecting exits instead of promises. Still, I worked. Worked because work was the only thing that didn't abandon me. I stacked boxes in warehouses, cleaned parking lots, hauled furniture for people who would never remember my name. At night, I studied under flickering lights, chasing degrees that no one expected me to earn. The professors said I was resilient. I wasn't. I was just afraid of becoming invisible. Years later, I opened a youth center for kids like me. The ones who had nowhere to go when the lights went out. It wasn't much. A rented space with cracked floors and a heater that coughed through winter. But it was a place. I told them that even a broken place could still be home for a while. Money was tight, but my pride ran deeper than my pockets. I drove a pickup old enough to rattle at stoplights, wore the same jacket for years, and learned how to stretch a week's groceries into 2. It wasn't a life of comfort, but it was one built on choice, and choice, to me, was everything. Then I met Melissa. She was 35, worked in medical sales, and spoke the language of airports and hotel bars. She carried herself like someone always in motion. Pressed suits, polished nails, the faint scent of perfume that lingered after she left a room. We met at a fundraiser for a local clinic. I was there because one of my boys had been volunteering. She was there because one of her clients had donated a wing. Our worlds should never have collided, but that night they did. She said she admired what I did, the patience it must take, the heart. I said patience was overrated, that mostly it was stubbornness. She laughed, and something in me loosened. We started seeing each other after that. Coffee dates that turned into dinners, dinners that turned into weekends. She'd show up at the center sometimes, bringing pizza for the kids, pretending she didn't notice the stairs when she stepped into that cracked old building in her heels and jewelry. At first, I thought it was pity disguised as love. Then I started to believe it was the other way around. She talked about wanting roots, about being tired of hotel rooms, of people who only saw her in passing. I talked about wanting a family that didn't need proof of my worth every morning. Felt like we were building something together. For the first time in my life, I stopped expecting the ending. When she stayed over, her suitcase sat open by the door, half unpacked, half ready to leave. I never asked her to close it. Some part of me believed that as long as she had the option to go, her staying meant more. 2 years passed that way. We learned each other's silences. She'd watch me cook late at night, sleeves rolled up, the radio humming softly. I'd watch her fall asleep with her phone on her chest, always one call away from another flight. We weren't perfect, but we were real, or at least I thought we were. Then came Caleb's housewarming in Atlanta. Caleb was an old friend from college, one of the few who knew what my life had been like before it got respectable. His new house was a 2-story suburban dream, the kind of place with manicured lawns and neighbors who waved from their driveways. Melissa looked at it and said maybe one day, as if she'd already pictured us there. I smiled because I'd already imagined it too. That night I kept the ring in my pocket. Simple, silver, nothing extravagant. It had taken me half a year to save for it. One extra shift at a time, one skipped dinner at a time. I had planned everything. The right song, the right moment, the right words. Halfway through the party, I stepped outside to take a call from one of my boys. A 16-year-old named Jaden had been stranded at a gas station after his friend ditched him. His voice trembled through the static. I told him to stay put. I'd find someone to help. Took 15 minutes. When I came back, the laughter inside had shifted. I was halfway down the hallway when I heard her voice. Melissa. Clear, bright, and just a little too loud. I mean, come on, she was saying. Ethan's great. He's stable, grounded. But he's not exactly forever material, you know? The words hit like a slow punch. Someone laughed. Then another. She went on. He's just simple. Sweet but simple. Good for now. I like that he's good with kids. But that kind of life? I couldn't do it forever. I stopped. The walls seemed to pulse around me. I thought maybe I'd misheard. But then I heard her laugh. That easy, practiced laugh she used when she was charming clients, smoothing edges. I stood there with my hand in my pocket, feeling the outline of the ring box pressing against my palm. My throat went dry. I thought about the months of saving, about the late nights, about the faith it took just to believe I could be loved by someone like her. For a moment, I wanted to walk in, to ask her to say it again, to my face this time. But I didn't. I just turned, walked out the back door, and stood under the dark Atlanta sky. The air smelled like rain and exhaust. Somewhere inside, music kept playing, her laughter blending with it like nothing had broken. I sat in my truck for an hour, engine off, headlights dimmed. The ring sat on the passenger seat beside me, catching the faint light from a street lamp. I thought about all the houses I'd lived in as a kid, the ones I left without warning, without closure. I realized I'd never really escaped that pattern. I just kept finding new versions of it. People don't change much. They just learn to disguise their exits. When I finally started the engine, the clock on the dashboard read 11:47 p.m. I drove to the gas station where Jaden was waiting. He was sitting on the curb, shivering. I gave him $20 for a cab, told him to get home safe. He asked if I was okay. I lied. When I got back home, I put the ring in a drawer and turned off my phone. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen table, watching the light crawl across the floor as dawn came, realizing that love can sound a lot like charity when spoken in the wrong room. By morning, she'd texted me a dozen times. "Where did you go? Are you mad?" I didn't mean it, but meaning doesn't matter once truth is spoken. I didn't answer, not yet, because some silences deserve to be heard before they're filled. I didn't confront her that night. There was no point. You can't argue with the echo of something already true. I just drove until the city lights thinned into silence, until my mind stopped replaying her laughter like a stuck record. The ring was still in the glove compartment. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Not yet. Symbols don't die as easily as love does. By the time I got home, dawn had started leaking through the blinds. My phone buzzed on the counter, calls, messages, missed connections. I ignored them all. For the first time in months, I didn't owe anyone an explanation. When I finally answered, 3 days later, I didn't recognize her voice at first. It was smaller, cracked in places where pride used to live. She said she needed to see me, that it was important. I almost said no. But then she said the one word that dissolved everything inside me. Pregnant. We met at a cafe near the river. She came without makeup, eyes swollen, fingers trembling around the coffee cup. The people around us spoke softly, but her silence was louder than any of them. I waited for her to speak first. She told me she had been scared, that what she said at the party wasn't true, just performance. Her way of fitting in with friends who measured worth by square footage and car brands. She said she didn't mean it, that she'd panicked when someone asked about marriage and money. That pretending I wasn't permanent made it easier than admitting how much she needed me. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But the words she'd spoken that night were carved too deep. You can't unhear contempt. You can only choose whether to keep living under it. I asked how far along she was. 6 weeks, maybe 7. She said she hadn't told anyone, not even her sister. She wanted to keep it. She said she wanted me to be the first to know. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, at the faint tremor in her hands, at the lipstick stain on the cup's rim, at the small scar above her eyebrow I'd once kissed without thinking. I realized I didn't know whether I was mourning her or myself. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. Her journal. She pushed it toward me. "Read it," she said. "You'll understand." Later, alone in my apartment, I did. Most of it was ordinary work notes, travel lists, reminders to call clients. But then, near the middle, the handwriting shifted, softer, slower. A page dated weeks before the party. He doesn't know how much I love the way he looks at the kids at the center. The patience. The quiet strength. I never thought I wanted children, but with him, I do. I think he'd be a good father, gentle, careful. The kind who stays even when it's hard. I stopped reading there. My throat felt like gravel. I wanted to call her, to forgive her. But forgiveness isn't a decision. It's erosion, slow, painful, uneven. The next morning, I called Caleb, asked him what happened after I left the party. There was a long pause on the other end. Then he said, "You sure you want to know?" I said yes. He told me she tried to change the subject after I left, that someone had asked about me, about my childhood, and she'd pulled out my old photographs. The ones I'd shown her months ago. She talked about how I'd grown up, how I'd survived foster care, how proud she was of me. Caleb said she sounded sincere, even proud. "It was weird, man," he said. She went from cold to protective, like she realized too late what she'd done. After we hung up, I drove home and found the photo album on my shelf. The worn leather cover was repaired with new stitching. Inside, every picture had been cleaned, restored, even digitized, a small flash drive tucked neatly into the back pocket. She had done it herself. Months earlier. Quietly, I sat on the floor, surrounded by those images of another life. Me at 8, standing in front of a foster house with a backpack too big for my shoulders. Me at 13, bruised but smiling. Me at 20, holding my first apartment key. I realized she'd seen all of it. The boy I was, the man I became. And still, she'd laughed that night. When she called again, I agreed to meet. This time, at my place. She came in slowly, looked around like she was afraid of what she might find missing. I poured her tea. She didn't drink it. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "Maybe you can't," I replied. She nodded, eyes glistening. "But I want to try. I don't care if you're broke, Ethan. I don't care about the job, the house, any of it. I want to be here. With you." Her words sounded right. Too right. Like she'd rehearsed them. I told her I couldn't be someone's project or redemption arc. That I didn't need to be saved. She said she didn't want to save me. She wanted to stay. Then she said something that caught me off guard. "You think I don't understand sacrifice?" "I do. I just don't wear it on my sleeve like you do." That stung more than it should have. Because maybe she was right. Maybe I had turned my pain into currency. Proof that I deserved to be loved. She reached for my hand. "Please," she whispered. "Don't shut me out." I looked at her, really looked, the tremor in her lip, the way her fingers trembled just slightly. I saw fear there, but not of losing me. Fear of being seen for who she truly was. Someone who needed to be forgiven to feel whole. I wanted to pull away. Instead, I said, "I need time." She nodded. "Then I'll wait." That night, I sat on the couch long after she'd gone. The silence pressed against the walls. I could still smell her perfume in the room, faint and haunting. I picked up the journal again, reread the line about wanting a family, about me being the kind of man who stayed. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent my whole life learning how to survive being left. Now I was the one standing at the threshold, unsure whether to walk away or hold on. Over the next week, she texted every morning. Small things. "How did the kids do today? Did you eat?" Each message landed like a stone dropped into still water, rippling through my thoughts. I didn't respond to most of them. When I did, my replies were short, careful. Then one evening, she showed up at the youth center. She brought sandwiches for the kids, smiled like nothing had broken between us. They loved her. They always had. Watching her kneel beside them, helping one of the boys tie his shoe, I felt something inside me fracture all over again, because that was the version of her I had fallen for. The one who showed up quietly, who didn't need an audience to care. After everyone left, she lingered by the doorway. "You're good with them," she said softly. "It's the only thing I know how to be good at." She took a step closer. "Maybe that's enough." I didn't answer. Later that night, as I locked up, I caught my reflection in the dark glass. Tired, hollow-eyed, holding on to something already gone. I drove home under a pale moon, the city lights blurring through the windshield. At a red light, I reached into the glove compartment, touched the ring box. It was still there, unopened, like a secret waiting for someone braver to confront it. When I got home, I placed it on the table beside her journal. Two small symbols of a love caught between confession and denial. I didn't know which one of us would leave first. I only knew that silence had already packed its bags. I read her journal until the letters blurred and the margins seemed to breathe. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't even tidy. It was the kind of writing people do when they're trying to convince themselves they still have a self to return to. Lists, half-finished sentences, a fight with a hotel clerk, a note to buy a portable charger. Then suddenly me, threaded through the clutter like a wire carrying current. He keeps his promises to kids no one else remembers. I don't know how to hold a man like that without breaking something in myself. I closed the notebook and opened it again, as if the sentences might jump into a different order and make the night in Atlanta disappear. When pride finally loosened its teeth, I called Caleb. He didn't say hello. He said my name the way medics say a pulse. Checking for life. After I left, I asked, "What did she do?" He took a breath. "She backpedaled. People teased. She laughed again, but it was tight. Then she pulled out your photos. You as a kid. Told everybody you were the toughest person she knew. I think she wanted to undo it, Ethan. She just couldn't. Undoing doesn't happen in public. It happens in kitchens when nobody's performing. It happens when you hand someone your ordinary and they keep it." I hung up and took the album from my shelf. The cover was no longer tired leather. It had been restitched with careful hands. Inside, each photo had been cleaned, flattened, dated in pencil so light it was almost shy. There was the boy with the too big backpack. There was the teenager standing in a borrowed suit, trying to look like the kind of person people invite into their homes. On the final page, a flash drive nested in a paper sleeve. She digitized every image. She had done this months ago and never told me. Love is a quiet worker, I thought. Then I remembered the laughter and wondered if I had just given a new name to an old habit. Charity dressed in tenderness. We met at my apartment because I wanted walls that remembered me better than she did. She came early, hands folded around nothing, shoulders squared like a witness. We didn't hug. The distance between us felt measured, legal. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know. I was showing off," she added, as if naming the sin would plant absolution. I wanted to sound like them, like I wasn't the kind of woman who would throw away the life she'd earned to follow a man into a leaking youth center. I was scared. "Of what?" "Needing you," she said, eyes steady. "And what you'd need in return." Silence crawled across the table. I could hear my refrigerator click, breathe, rest. Ordinary machines doing honest work. I envied them. I told her about the call that dragged me out of the party. About Jaden stranded at a gas station. About how easy it had been to decide him first. Her jaw tightened. The smallest admission of jealousy, or maybe awe. Then she said the word again. Pregnant. So softly it felt like a bruise she was protecting. I nodded. I didn't reach for her. I wanted the truth to land without a net. "When did you know?" 2 mornings before the party. "And you went anyway?" "I thought if I told you after, with everyone cheering, it would feel like a beginning." "I didn't expect." She stopped. "I didn't expect to become the person I was making fun of." I opened a drawer and put the ring on the table between us. Not a threat. A timeline. "I was going to ask you," I said. "At midnight. In a room full of people we don't owe anything to." She stared at it like it was a small animal she'd hurt. I would have said yes. "I don't believe you." Her eyes flashed, then softened. "I don't blame you." We talked like that, blunt, almost gentle cruelty, until the light shifted and the ring looked different. She told me about her childhood. A house where silence was currency and applause was the only proof a thing mattered. How she learned to laugh like everyone else so they'd forget to measure her. How money became applause with receipts. None of it excused Atlanta. It only explained the costume. "People like me," she said, "don't know how to hold something humble. We're afraid it will turn into a mirror." "Maybe it already did," I said. "And you didn't like who you saw." She didn't argue. That scared me more than anger would have. When she left for the bathroom, I opened her journal again. Another entry bloomed across the page. He keeps his promises to teenagers who lie to his face. He doesn't make them earn care. He makes them earn trust. I don't know if I deserve him, but I know I want to try deserving. Deserving. The word felt like a courtroom. When she came back, she stood by my bookshelves and touched the spine of a novel I kept for a boy who never finished it. "You think I turned you into a project?" she said. "I didn't. I turned you into proof." "Of what?" "That I could love something unprofitable." I laughed once, harsh, surprised. "How did that work out?" She winced. "About as well as you loving someone who needs the room to applaud before she chooses." We sat again. She reached for the ring, then stopped. "I won't ask for it," she said. "Not now. Not like this." So we did the only honest thing left. We told each other what we feared. She feared becoming a mother who resented the child for reminding her of me. I feared becoming a father whose house felt like a foster stop, love conditional on what could be paid or performed. She feared my poverty. I feared her wealth. She feared the center would swallow me. I feared her world would ask me to starve myself into a better suit. "I won't be a charity case," I said. "I won't be your good deed. I won't be your penance," she answered. "You're proof that you can build the family you didn't have by force of will." The honesty didn't fix anything. It only made the shape of the break visible. That night, after she left, I drove to the center and sat in the dark office smelling like pine sol and sneaker rubber. I thought about the boys, how they believed attention and love were synonyms because attention always had a price. I had taught them otherwise. Attention is a beginning. Love is an agreement you renew without applause. I realized I hadn't taught myself the same lesson. When I got home, she'd slid an envelope under my door. Inside was a printout. Appointments for counseling, 2 names circled. A schedule highlighted that matched mine. Not a demand. An invitation. Called her. "You're moving in," I said, before I could second-guess the part of me that still believed in building slow with witnesses. "Temporarily," she replied. "You'll hate it if I say forever." "I will. Then I'll say, until we know what we are." The next morning, she arrived with 2 suitcases and no performance. She made the bed without commentary, stocked my fridge with food that had ingredients I couldn't pronounce, and left space on every shelf. I watched her move through my small rooms like someone memorizing a map she wasn't sure she'd be allowed to keep. Later, I took the ring from the table and put it back in the drawer. Not buried, suspended. That evening, the boys at the center needed a ride across town after a pickup game dragged too late. I hesitated, expecting the sigh, the argument, the reminder that men with families aren't ambulances. Instead, Melissa grabbed the keys. "I'll drive," she said. "You call their names so they don't feel like cargo." On the way back, she asked the boys about school, about who they trusted, about what help sounded like and what it cost. She didn't ask for thanks. She didn't manufacture a moral. She just drove. At a red light, one of the boys in the back asked if she was my wife. She glanced at me. I didn't answer. She did. "Not yet," she said. "Right now I'm practicing staying." Later, at home, I opened the album again and watched the child version of me stare back, brittle and stubborn. I thought about the baby that might already be a sea glass spark inside her, about the house I could afford and the life she could, and how both might fail a child if we refused to meet in the narrow place between applause and hunger. I told myself there was hope, but hope isn't a promise. It's a ledger. I don't know if I can forgive what I heard. I don't know if she can forgive what I won't forget. I only know this. The past keeps its receipts, and the future cashes them with or without your consent. For now, she sleeps beside me. The ring sleeps in a drawer. The journal sleeps on the table. And I lie awake counting the cost of staying, the cost of leaving, and the cost of raising a child to know the difference between being loved and being displayed. If I choose wrong, I won't blame fate. I'll blame the laugh I heard in Atlanta, and the way I kept listening to it long after the music stopped. Melissa moved into my apartment the week after the counseling envelope. She arrived before sunrise, car trunk open, 2 suitcases and a box of shoes she didn't need. I helped her carry them up the narrow stairs. She looked around the small space as if it were a test she might fail. The living room held one couch, one lamp, and a patch of sunlight that always fell across the same crack in the floorboards. "It's smaller than I imagined," she said softly, and then, catching herself, "But it feels honest." We learned new choreography. Her morning coffee in my dented mug, my shaving kit tucked beside her skincare bottles that looked like glass trophies. She worked from the kitchen table, laptop open, headset gleaming. I worked from the youth center, paint still peeling from the walls. When I came home, she'd ask about the boys, how they were doing, what they'd broken, who had finally learned to trust themselves enough to fail out loud. She listened, but sometimes I caught her drifting. The world she came from moved faster, louder. Mine dragged. Our counselor, a quiet woman named Naomi, met us twice a week. The sessions took place in a dim office smelling of sage and old carpet. We spoke in turns, like witnesses in a trial where no one was innocent. Melissa admitted that she'd built her life like armor, measured love in profit and safety. I confessed that I used goodness like a P*N, that I needed to be needed to feel whole. Naomi just nodded, as if she'd already heard the verdict. "You both want control," she said. "But love is never a democracy. It's a temporary truce between fears." At night, Melissa lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan. I could feel her thoughts trembling through the mattress. Once, she said, "Do you think we can build something real out of what we broke?" I wanted to say yes. Instead, I said, "We can build something real, but it won't be what we imagined." Days blurred into one another. She started helping at the youth center, first just watching, then taking over the paperwork, organizing supply drives, talking to donors. The boys liked her. She smiled differently there, less performance, more warmth. I'd catch her crouched beside a kid, listening like she understood the language of half-truths and guarded eyes. I think she did. She was learning what silence costs. One night, Jaden, the same boy I'd driven to safety months ago, called in a panic. His friend was stranded in a neighborhood where the streetlights had died, where the wrong kind of people waited in cars that didn't belong. I grabbed my keys, ready to go. Before I could say anything, Melissa took them from my hand. "I'll drive," she said. I stared at her, unsure if this was guilt or growth. Maybe both. We found the kid sitting on a curb, knees tucked under his chin, trying to look older than he was. Melissa talked to him gently, told him about mistakes she'd made, how fear can sound like freedom if you don't listen closely. On the drive home, she kept glancing at me, eyes flickering between exhaustion and something tender. When we pulled into the parking lot, she exhaled. "Maybe this is what forever looks like," she said. "Not perfect, just not running away." I didn't answer. The words felt too fragile to touch. Weeks passed. Her belly began to curve, small but undeniable. She took photos of the ultrasound and pinned them to the fridge beside the boys' drawings. She wanted to paint the spare room pale green. I let her. She ordered a crib online, and when it arrived, we assembled it together, arguing over screws, laughing once or twice when the frame collapsed and we started again. The laughter startled me. It had been months since it came without effort. Still, I couldn't forget Atlanta. It lived behind every quiet moment, a shadow over her smiles. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with a sadness that felt like apology. Other times, I'd find myself rehearsing forgiveness like a speech I didn't believe in. One evening, Naomi asked us to describe trust. Melissa said it was, "Believing someone won't P***nigh your worst moment." I said it was, "Believing someone will stay even when they've seen your worst." We sat there, the two definitions orbiting each other like planets too distant to collide. Naomi smiled sadly. "Maybe that's the work," she said. "Learning to stand between those meanings without losing balance." Balance. That word became our religion. We practiced it in small ways, splitting chores, trading apologies, pretending not to keep score. We stopped saying forever. We said today. It was less poetic, but it survived the mornings when she threw up in the bathroom and the nights I came home too tired to talk. One Friday, after a long day, I found her sitting on the couch holding my old photo album. She'd been scanning each picture, labeling them neatly, Ethan, age 9. Foster home number 4. Ethan, 17. Graduation suit. Her handwriting was steady now. I want the baby to know you, she said. Not the version you show the world. The one who kept trying when no one asked him to. Her voice trembled on the word trying. I realized she wasn't only talking about the boy in the pictures. She was talking about me now, about us, about the slow rebuilding that still felt temporary. I sat beside her. You think I can be a father? She looked at me, eyes tired but sure. You already are one. You've just been practicing on borrowed hearts. The words cracked something open. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe her. For the first time in months, I let myself touch her stomach, small beneath her sweatshirt, and felt a flutter. A heartbeat. Proof that something was still willing to grow between us. Afterward, she rested her head on my shoulder. We didn't speak. Outside, the city hummed its indifferent song. Inside, we existed in a fragile calm built from pieces too sharp to call whole. Some nights, when she fell asleep, I'd open the drawer where the ring still waited. I'd hold it, turn it over in the dim light, wondering if promises could survive the damage that made them necessary. Maybe love isn't the absence of betrayal. Maybe it's learning how to live after you've seen its face. Months later, the baby's kicks grew stronger. Melissa began laughing again. Not the brittle laughter of that party, but the kind that spills without permission. She sang while she cooked, badly but sincere. The apartment filled with her voice, with motion, with something that almost felt like peace. I still had doubts. They came quietly, like drafts through unseen cracks. But when I watched her scanning my old photographs, saving them, labeling them, preparing them for a child who would someday ask where we came from, I felt the edges of my anger dull. Maybe this was redemption, not for her, but for me. The night she finished the album, she slid it toward me. On the last page, she'd added a photo of us, sitting in the half-built nursery, hands resting on her stomach. Beneath it, she'd written in small, deliberate letters, "Real doesn't mean perfect. It means staying." I closed the book gently. For once, I didn't flinch at the word. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, persistent, the kind that doesn't demand attention but changes everything it touches. I listened to it, feeling the weight of years shift just enough to breathe. I don't know if love can outlast memory, or if forgiveness can build something worth keeping. But that night, watching her sleep beside the life we made, I believed there might be enough left in me to try again. Not a fairy tale, not redemption, just two people sitting in the wreckage, holding hands, daring the dawn to come. And maybe, just maybe, that's where forever begins.